Hello everyone, my name is Margaret Couplet. I'm the author of 7, soon to be 8, queer sci-fi fantasy romance novels. I've managed to get through that again without messing up. Let's hope that streak remains. We're not doing a vlog this week. We're going to do a sit-down video, which is why I'm sitting here in front of the couch with the white backdrop. That doesn't quite go as far as I thought it would, but we work with what we work with. The lighting situation is a bit weird. I don't have any dedicated lighting. I do not have any dedicated lighting for my YouTube channel or my videos. So we're working with what we work with. We've got a couple windows open and all the lights on. So let's see how this goes. This week we are going to be doing a sit-down video on all of my series to introduce stuff and show you my 15-year, 13-year plan, however long it is. And we're going to start with the series that I already have published, that I have either finished or am currently working on. So let's start off with Soldiers and Swords. Alright, so Soldiers and Swords, 3-book series, trilogy. It starts with Wielder, and we've got Sniper, and Sovereign. It is a sort of post-apocalyptic kind of sci-fi, kind of fantasy story where essentially what's happened is another race of humans has fallen out of the ether. Some people call them demons, some people call them fae, though that's not really touched on. They're called the Dindiri, and they have taken over most of the planet at this point, and the main character's name is Clark. He is part of the Human Empire, which isn't really an empire, but they call themselves that to make themselves sound more important. And he is a soldier in the military. He's just finished his schooling, and he gets picked up by a sword squad. Sword squads are important because they have sentient magical swords that are bonded to their wielders. So in Wielder, he ends up bonding himself to one of these swords out of a group of candidates, and he meets Adam, who he very quickly falls into a relationship with. Adam is a nobleman, he's part of the squad. Yeah, and as the book goes on, they come to understanding. It ends up being poly by the 3rd book, though that's kind of iffy whether or not it's going to be continued from that point, but there is one poly scene. Otherwise, it's mostly MM, Clark, and Adam all the way. Next up is the Hellsing Siblings series, which starts off with Artemis's brother, and then we end up with The High Elf's Archers, Book 2, and Book 3 that's about to come out on Tuesday is An Alpha's Beloved. I am filming this on the 1st of August, so I've got about 5 days left before this comes out, before An Alpha's Beloved comes out. But if you're watching this on Sunday, it comes out on Tuesday, so you only have 2 days to wait. Artemis's brother is the 1st book in the series. It's about Cain. He is... Cannot put my hair over that shoulder, other shoulder. He is the 6th-born son of the Hellsing family. And Artemis, his little sister, the only sister he has, the only sister they have, there are 7 brothers, at least in the 1st book, she's run away from an arranged marriage that her mother was going to sign off on. So she bolted. She's not graduated high school yet. This was her senior year, etc., etc. So he goes after her, even though the head of their family tells him not to, and she ended up at the Drake Estate. Now, the Drake Estate is the home of the Draco Sanguis's family. I can't remember if I made her the eldest or the youngest daughter. One of his daughters and her mate, and his grandson, whose name is Isaiah Drake. And so he ends up breaking into the Drake estate, which is a mistake, kidnapped by the Dracosanguis and carried across the ocean to be held in captivity for a hot second. Next up is The High Elf's Archer, which is about Percy, who is the fifth-born brother, and he ends up accidentally saving a young elf from a ghoul, and then earning the admiration of this young baby elf's father, and then ends up making out with him at a club and getting swept away to the Feywilds to help guard his son while a change of power is going on. It's a much different vibe from Artemis's brother, to the point where I find it actually kind of funny. And that happens about 6 months after the first one. Yeah, about 6 months after the first one is when that one takes place. And then we have Malthus Beloved, which is Connor's book. Connor is the eldest. Connor was the head of the family until Gabriel came of age, because through magical shenanigans, the seventh-born sons of seventh-born sons are to become the heads of families for the Hunters. Connor has a lot on his plate because Gabriel does not do any of the work that the family head is supposed to, and it always falls on Connor's plate. And then Connor gets kidnapped by a rogue band of werewolves and turned into a werewolf. So yeah, he's having a time. The fourth book in the series is going to be The Dragon's Prize, which is Cameron's book. Cameron is the second-born. And he meets a dragon, who all the hunters thought were extinct. Everyone thought the hunters are extinct. This is also the book where the entire world finds out about the supernatural, because it's been a big secret up until now. But a thing happens, and now everyone knows. Great. Book 5 is Cain's sister, which is Artemis's book. She is the only woman of the family. She is the youngest. She is only 19 when her book starts, but she was 17 when she ran away. This has an overlapping timeline with The Dragon's Prize, which was a bit interesting to write because I needed to figure out the timeline of events that go down through the book before I could actually write either of them, which, considering I'm a plantser and mostly pants stuff while I write it, and only have like the vaguest of ever outlines, was a bit difficult for me. She is with Isaiah Drake. It's kind of obvious after book 1, when you read book 1, but she is with Isaiah Drake, who she does not know is a vampire, who she finds out is a vampire in like the first 2 chapters of the book, and then finds out that the thing has happened. The thing that has divulged the big secret. And then she gets kidnapped by the United States military. It was originally the CIA, but then I realized the CIA doesn't actually have the authority to arrest people, and it just made more sense for me to have, like, a Black Ops squad kidnap her and her friends for reasons of they're YouTubing. They're YouTubing the supernatural world, and no one knew it was, like, actual legit. Alright, on to the next series that is currently published. We are going to be talking about Empire of Stardust, which is another trilogy. The third book comes out in November of this year, on the Oh, I can't remember. Is it the 5th or the... I think it's the 5th. It's the first Tuesday. So this is my sci-fi queer romance. First book is MMF. Second book is MM. Third book is MMF. So in the first book, what ends up happening is this alien race is invading because humanity has managed to violate some pretty big rules that have happened, that have been set down, that the higher-ups are trying to enforce. So they sent the Fatron army in to try and get things under control. It does not go well for anyone involved, pretty much. So Gareth is the prince, and he is doing his first real, combat mission. And he meets Daniela and Chase. Daniela and Chase, he thinks are normal humans. They aren't. They and the people they're traveling with are a bunch of genetic experiments that have escaped from a lab. A secret lab that the United States has been using to turn people into mutants. Well, not turn people, but make mutants by splicing embryos with animal DNA. So that's this book. This book is about Lake, who is the child of Daniela, Chase, and Gareth. Adopted surrogate kind. So Lake is one of the embryos because the lab has been taken down in the last book, because obviously the lab needed to be taken down in the last book. And he is one of the embryos, and Daniela carried him, and so she's raising him as her son because she gave birth to him, and also because he's her son, obviously. And he meets Anra, who is a guardsman who ends up being his bodyguard. So this is a bodyguard romance that takes off a bit quicker than most bodyguard romances. They're banging within 2 days. It just happens that way. And then the next book is A Reaper Born. It has not come out. It's coming out in November. That is Lily's book. Lily is Lake's brother and the actual genetic child of Gareth, Daniela, and Chase. They have no idea how that happened, but it is a thing that happened. And yeah, so Daniela had Lake, and then Lily was the surprise, oh, I can actually have children, my ovaries are operational, child. So at the beginning of the book, she's not doing too great, and they're back at the main planet, Fatromo, which is the Fatra's home planet, because there has been an incident. And now we are moving on to this board, which is my, I think it's 13-year plan. It's more than a 10-year plan at this point. This is how I keep track of what is getting released and when. Not exact dates, but time frames, because I release, the plan is 4 books a year, every 3 months, middle of the quarter. That is the plan. I probably should have done it beginning of the quarter, but we're in the middle of the quarter, and at this point, I don't want to rearrange anything. I want everything to be rewritten a year ahead of schedule, and then it gets edited in the quarter before. So, A Reaper Born is already written, but this month is when I need to go through and do the developmental edits. And then next month is also when I'm finishing off the developmental edits and then sending it to get printed out. because I do copy edits on paper or line edits on paper, whatever you want to call it. I call it the line/copy edit. I do a developmental edit, and then I do a line/copy edit, and then I do a proofread while it's on the computer, and then I format it, and then it goes up. It gets, yeah, it's a thing. You will probably see me do this a couple of times at some point during vlogs. Yeah, so as you can see on this, we have already released these 2 books this year, and once An Alpha's Beloved gets released, that's getting crossed off as well. So let's go through and do the thing. Alright, so this is color-coded, by the way. So we are going to start with Heir Apparent, which is part of the Winterblade trilogy series. The Winterblade series is the series that is coming out after Empire of Stardust finishes. It is a mafia, soulmates, fantasy romance type deal. The 3 main characters are Damien, Daya, and Dante. Dante and Damien are twins, Daya is their roommate. And they end up being the soulmates/fated mates of the Winterblade men. Dante ends up being the soulmate of the Dawn, Damien is the soulmate of the Heir, and Daya ends up being the soulmate of the Spare, second-born son. And yeah, there's an evil cult trying to steal Shifter's ability to shift and magic and Elf's immortality, because they're a bunch of crazy cuckoo cult members who are purely human and kind of bitter about that fact. Now, the Winterblade trilogy and this, in 2026, is when we start the new 5-book series. Because what I'm doing is I'm having an alternate short series and long series. So for variety, and also so I don't drive myself insane, because I cannot write just 1 book at a time. So the next long series that comes out starts with Lord of Lust, and it is called the Hell's Ladies series. The Hell's Ladies series takes place in modern times. It's like kind of the ambiguous modern times of like every paranormal romance ever set in like the 20 whatevers. And what happens in that is some cuckoo nutjob opens up the gates of hell, demons come out, and they end up taking over, and they actually do a better job of managing Earth than most everyone. The main characters are all women and NB, and one NB, whose flavor, I don't know how to like categorize this, but Trix is NB, but they're also like more femme than androgynous, but they are MB. Trix is NB. She is nope, they. I need to get into the habit of doing that, because Trix is NB, they end up being the main character in the 3rd book, Warrior of Wrath. The main characters all used to live at Hazel's Bar, and now that the apocalypse has started, they start to catch the attention of the princes of hell. After that, oh yes, after the Winterblade trilogy finishes, we are going to move on to the Siren's Sea trilogy. I believe that is what I have finally settled on calling it. The first book is Mage of Tides. That is what I wrote for Nano this year. It's all about these men, like two of the main characters are former humans who have been turned into mermen. But all of the love interests are royals of a mer line. So Shashida is the heir to the Merlatin throne, and Comorn is not the heir to the Cuculit throne, but he is a member of the Cuculit line. I have not figured out who the love interest for book 3 is going to be yet, but he will also be a prince. That is the word I'm looking for, prince. So yeah, it's all about magic and doing stuff underwater and, oh dear, everything, just trying to figure out how stuff works underwater was an interesting world building task in and of itself. I have an entire section during a meeting where I talk about what they eat. I don't know why I've done this to myself. They write things down by stitching them in cloth. Like, their writing is embroidery. Literally, the writing is embroidery. Why have I done this? Alright, so, after Lord of Lust, which, Saint of Sloth, which is the 4th book in the series, should bring us to 20 books published. I am absolutely ecstatic about this. After Saint of Sloth, we are going to have a standalone novel that is going to tie into a series that comes up later. It is the Shadow Mage novella. I don't know if that's going to be the final title. It probably isn't going to be. It is about a Angelborn who are... The Angelborns... It is going to be about an Angelborn and a Shadow Mage. Shadow Mages have a tendency to turn into Dark Lords, so they're heavily prejudiced against. This is going to be set in modern day-ish, paranormal modern day, and the Angelborn has just finished his life's purpose, so now he can look for his soulmate. And turns out that the Shadow Mage is his soulmate. Alright. But the next series is going to be Smythe. It's going to start with Smythe. It's going to be the paranormal... No, what did I call it? Paranormal Bureau of Investigations? I think I called it the Paranormal Bureau of Investigations, or is it the Supernatural Bureau of Okay, we will remember the series name at some point. But that is a continuation of the Helsing Siblings series world. It is going to follow one team in the Paranormal Bureau of Investigations. Helsing is going to be on the team. Gabriel Helsing is going to be on the team. He is going to be the romance book be the last romance in that series. And everyone on that team, or at least everyone who the books are about, are going to end up with Eldritch Abominations. Because the Darklings have come back and they need to be destroyed. So, that's going to be so much fun. So much fun. Alright, but the next trilogy that's going to be coming up is the Wolfsbane trilogy. Wolfsbane is the name of the first book. I have not quite figured out what the series name is going to be. It might just be the Wolfsbane trilogy. Who knows? This one is going to probably be MMF all the way. So a lot of my books are just assume my characters are bi unless stated otherwise, because like some of these books are het passing. A lot of these books are het passing actually. But all of my characters are bi unless stated otherwise. Is the thing. Or Demi or Ace. But Ace and Demi I tend to actually state outright because people don't catch clues quite that well. That one's going to be all, but yeah, Wolfsbane trilogy is going to be all MMF. The first book is an arranged marriage that was vaguely inspired by a fan fiction, a Witcher fan fiction. And if you know what the name Malena means when related to Lambert, then you know exactly which fan fiction it was inspired by. But it diverges from the main character. Margot isn't Malena, but like the situation was inspired by like. So, in this world that Wolfsbane takes place in, there are the four gods. The god of the wolves, the god of the hunters, the god of the humans, and the god of the elves. And all four of those gods have been locked up by their followers or by another god's followers. And at the beginning of the first book, the werewolf's god is unbound, and she's fucking pissed. And so what's happening is the hunters, to make amends, to bind their races closer together, what they're doing is marrying off members of their camps to the local werewolf packs. Margot isn't a hunter, though. Her mother is human, and she married a hunter. So Margot's sister is half hunter, but she's hunter because that's the dominant trait that came out. Anyway, so Margot's sister gets picked, but Margot's sister is underage. so she runs, and Margot takes it upon herself to become the bride. But Margot is a bitten werewolf, and no one knows this except for her dead stepfather and herself. But no one knows yet. The next trilogy on the block is going to be Wolves Divine. It starts with Sword of Seven. What's going on in that one is the main character of the first book is from our world, but she gets dragged into the world. It's kind of portal fantasy, kind of isekai. She and her bus full of classmates get dragged into the other world. And they end up, there's this clan of humans and a clan of wolves. They've been at war for a while. The clan of humans think they know why. It's not actually why. There is an evil demon who's calling itself a god that the humans are worshipping, and the wolves are following the actual gods and trying to kill it. But it keeps not working. And things fall out from there. Regina, who is the main character, gets gifted the Sword of Seven, which is blessed by the six gods and given to humanity so humanity can baptize it in blood. It's a thing. She does what she manages to save the people, and then the next book takes place over 100 years later, when the sword has become a relic and no one can use it for anything, and the main character of that book finds out about another demon and takes it upon himself to take the blade and go kill the demon, because that's what you do with a demon-killing sword. And then the third book is about a family line who's been cursed by the original demon's last breath, and the girl who's fallen in love with the heir of this family line. So after that one, that's the latest trilogy, and the next 5-book series that comes after the Paranormal Bureau of Investigations is Immortal Love, which is about a bunch of immortals who have and their mates. Immortals are immortal beings they have a very low birth rate. And the catalyst for the first book is when Jasmine, who is the main character, she is an energy witch who is possessed by a wrath demon. She doesn't know about that part until further into the book, finds one of their missing children because a couple of decades ago, someone broke into this big meeting that was going on and stole 3 immortal babies. And through a bunch of convoluted stuff, they ended up getting adopted and scattered all over the United States. So yeah, that is the Immortal Love 5-book series. The 5th book in that series is about the same couple that throuple, really, the same throuple that we meet in the first book, with a twist, which, if y'all end up reading that series, will probably kill me for, because it comes at the end of book 4, and yeah. Oh, and the next 3-book series on this, the one that's coming after the Wolves Divine, I haven't figured out the thing, is my superhero series, because I decided that I wanted to do a funny little superhero series, but I don't actually have a lot figured out in it yet, so it's further out. Side note, some of these are rewrites, some of them are not. I will bring it up when they're rewrites of stuff, when I actually am writing the thing, but Fall into Villainy is not a rewrite. It is I came up with the idea a couple of years ago. It's a standard superhero world. The first book starts off with this kid who's been a 20-year-old kid something. His main nemesis is the best friend of his mentor who went bad. He's kind of a Lex Luthor type, except more chaotic, neutral than actually evil. And so the main character finds out he is supposed to be beloved, but he's not getting paid for the superhero stuff because he's so powerful that he should have been killed when he was younger. And he finds out that the superhero corporation has cloned him, or made a kid, not really cloned, and so he takes the kid and he runs to his arch nemesis because he knows that the arch nemesis can save him. The next book in that series is Mob of Ravens, and it's about the mob in this superhero world. It's run by a woman named Raven. She is only 21 years old. She has been in charge of this thing since she was 15. And then we have A God's Love, which I haven't quite figured out what that one's going to be about. So we'll see. But it's going to be 3 books because I felt like it needed to be 3 books. It needed to be a trilogy. Alright. Next up on the docket is another standalone novel. It's Emperor's Ranger. That one is going to be straight high fantasy, I believe. And that one's going to be about a ranger who ends up saving his emperor from being killed by a god's child, and ends up, I haven't decided if it's going to be an actual curse, but he ends up kind of getting cursed for it, and the emperor is falling in love with him, because of course. Next up is actually a rewrite series. No, kind of, no, nah. So the main idea of this was supposed to be a just spicy little short story, because I was going through my technical school while I was still in the military, and I was bored in class, and you're not allowed to take your phones in. So I ended up with a notebook, and the boys in my class they were all rooming together, which just left me with a lot of just weird material that apparently, boys are weird when they live together, okay? It ended up with a lot of weird material that was like, it just ended up just inspiring some weird stuff. But this series, which I haven't set the names up, is kind of inspired by that. It's, again, about like a special investigation unit for the paranormal supernatural, and it's 5 books long, and it is in the same world as the Shadow Mage novella, which is why the Shadow Mage novella is coming first, because it's supposed to be set up, because the main characters in that show up in this series, and one of the main characters in King, which is the last book, is also an angel born. Battery's getting a bit low, so we're going to try and speed up on this. Then we have the Neverland Wonderland duology, and this is going to be trans retellings, kind of trans-inspired, hi baby boy, trans-inspired stories based off of Peter Pan and Alice in Wonderland. Then after that is the Dark Times and Cool Wind duology. These are, I think they might be, no, they aren't. Sword of Seven is my oldest rewrite. Dark Times and Cool Wind is my second oldest. They got thought up tail end of high school, beginning of middle school. Not high school, tail end of elementary school, beginning of middle school. They have changed a lot. Then we have Lord of the Vampires, Lord of Wolves, and Lord of the Angels, and it's probably going to be called something like the Lord of Trilogy, and that is connected to Immortal Love, because those 3 books end up being about the immortal children who got kidnapped back before the first series started. And then the last series we have on here is the Unhallowed Hunters series. I've said that correctly. And that's Stormlord, Earthshaker, Molten Glacier, and Morningstar. It is about a family of hunters who end up getting mixed up in some really weird stuff. And then we have this panel. This panel is all of the random ideas that have not found a place on this schedule yet. Some of these random ideas are going to end up being under a pen name, but some of them aren't. And I've got everything planned out all the way up to 2037. So we shall see how I feel in the next couple of years. But they're just going to have to wait around until then. Yeah. Alright, so just reminding everyone, I am Margaret Couplet. You can find me on my website, on Patreon, and on TikTok. Patreon is Maggie's Books. If you cannot find my Patreon in the standard search bar for the Patreon website, you can find a link to it on my website, which is a WordPress. If you search Margaret Couplet, it should be one of the first things to come up. And if you want to find me on TikTok, I am author M. Couplet. See you next week, and I hope you enjoy An Elf is Beloved when you get around to reading it. Yeah. See, nope, that was not cool. See you next week.